I didn't plan on having an argument that afternoon. I was just making coffee, half listening to my son explain his school project like it was the most important thing in the world. Every year, his school asks the kids to become someone from history. Not just read about them, embody them. He takes it seriously. Always has. This year, he handed me his list with a kind of quiet pride. 3 names. Three people he thought mattered. I won't say who they were. That's not the point. What mattered was how carefully he chose them. How he talked about their lives, not their scandals. What they changed, not what they did wrong. Later that day, my phone buzzed. A message from his teacher. Two of the choices weren't acceptable. They weren't appropriate role models. The third one apparently hadn't made enough of an impact to count. I read the message twice. Then a third time, slower. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger, exactly. More like disappointment. It wasn't about the assignment. It was the implication. That someone gets to decide which lives are clean enough to learn from. I started drafting a reply immediately. A long one. The kind you write when you're trying not to shout. I wrote about how history isn't moral instruction, it's human instruction. How influence doesn't come with a purity test. How we don't teach our kids by pretending complexity doesn't exist. By the time my wife came home, I was still sitting at the table. Same cold coffee. Same unsent email. She glanced at my screen, then at me. And said, gently, "Is this really a fight worth having?" That question stayed with me longer than the teacher's message. Because the truth was, I didn't want to fight. I just didn't want my son to learn the wrong lesson. That some stories are too uncomfortable to tell. That admiration requires approval. That curiosity needs permission. So I rewrote the email. Shorter this time. Calmer. I asked the teacher to reconsider. Not defensively. Just firmly. I also wrote to the school administration. Not to accuse. To explain. I said the assignment was about significance, not sanctity. That children don't need heroes carved from marble. They need people carved from reality. Then I waited.
Look, Dad, I wrote it all by myself.
That's wonderful, son. I'm very proud of you.
That evening, my son asked if he'd done something wrong. That question landed harder than anything else. I told him no. I told him adults can be wrong sometimes. That rules aren't sacred just because they exist. We talked about how people can be meaningful without being perfect. How mistakes don't erase impact. How learning is supposed to be uncomfortable sometimes. The next day, the teacher replied, after speaking with the administration, students could choose freely from their original list. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a quiet reversal. I closed my laptop and sat there for a moment longer than necessary. I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. Not because I'd won, but because my son wouldn't have to unlearn curiosity. He still hasn't decided who he'll present as. He's thinking about it. And honestly, I don't mind. The most important lesson was never part of the assignment anyway. It was the one we didn't write down.